I know you can't hear me because we were on mute. We're on mute. We were doing stuff in the background. We were doing stuff in the pre-show. Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday to you all. Defensive line rankings today on the show. We close out the week in style. Looking forward to the debates that are going to come from this list because this list is the most annoying list we've done so far. This is by far the list that was the most annoying list to put together. Just because people play different defenses, places classify players as defensive ends, defensive linemen, defensive tackles. The research that required to put this list together, we were just all over the place. Now, I will say, I think we did a pretty good job with this list. I think we're gonna obviously do the normal thing that we do, where we're gonna have debates about the teams in the middle tiers, right? It's what we do every single time we do one of these shows. But I think we got the top of the list, the top 7, I feel pretty good about. And I think the bottom 4 or 5, I feel pretty good about. And it's that middle tier that we will always debate as usual. I'll go to this screen. We are here. We are ready to go. I'll actually give me 2 seconds and I will get the other screen already ready to go because we're going to need it probably pretty quickly. So let me get this zoomed in. That's way too zoomed in. I got to back that up a little bit. Okay. Good morning, everybody. Welcome in. Hope everyone's having a great start to their Friday. Great end of the week here on the show. Positional rankings. Heldy already has a team that he is going to die for on the show. Heldy, I promise I won't say anything. Give me the team that you are ready to go to battle for. Give me the team that you are ready to go to battle for. I won't tell you where I have them ranked. I won't even give a facial reaction. I'm just going to take the team that you put it in the chat, and I'm going to look over to the list, and I'm going to see where I have them, and then we'll see what happens when the show begins. The Colts. Okay? All right. The Colts are the team that you're going to go to battle for. In a good way or in a bad way? Are you going to campaign for them to be high on the list, or are you going to campaign for them to be lower on the list? I mean, I guess it depends on where I ultimately have them, but I guess you're campaigning in a positive way. Okay. All right. Is there a acceptable range where you'd like them to slide in? Not like an exact spot, but is there a range that you would feel comfortable with them? Not super high, but get their due respect. Okay. All right. Well, I mean, we'll see what happens. We'll let the show play out. The show will play out, and then, we'll see. And now here's what I'll say, Heldy. If they are in a spot that you are uncomfortable with, we can have the debate. If they're in a spot that you are comfortable with, then you got to start to have my back on some of these lists. You got to have my back on some of these lists. Bailey says, "Is this just interior guys, Chris?" Okay. So I'm going to mention this again when we press record for the show, but we'll have this pre-show conversation as well. I just tried to remove players that are considered edge players. So there are some players who are defensive ends that are not the traditional edge players. So that is what we tried to do with this list. We tried. Now, I can't promise that we didn't let somebody slip through the cracks in doing the research here. But we tried to make this heavy on the defensive line, not so much the pass rushers. We tried. We tried to eliminate that from the list. So hopefully we got there. Hopefully we have a pretty good list based on this. But that is where we are currently at. Ooh, I forgot this doesn't include... It does not. We're going to do edge. Edge will probably be... Actually, edge will be Monday. Edge will be Monday, and we'll just look at edge players. Now, I will tell you, we need to come together as... Never mind on the Steelers' top 5 stuff. I mean, it's easy. Just let the list play out first. Let the list play out first. So, all right, if you guys are ready, I have some other things that I'd like to discuss, but we'll save it for the podcast portion. So here we go. And welcome into the Friday edition of the TDN Daily podcast. Chris Schubert back with you here once again on the show. Hope everybody is having a great start to their Friday. We've got the defensive line rankings for you today here on the show as we continue our 2023 positional rankings series on the TDN Daily podcast. We flip over to the defensive side of the ball. If you haven't gotten a chance to go back and listen to all of the offensive episodes. They're all in the backlog. You can do so in your podcast feed. You can do so on the Draft Network YouTube channel. We went through the entirety of the offense here over the last week or so and have gotten those episodes done. We now flip over to the defensive side of the ball, and today it is the defensive lineman. And what a tough and tall task this was, because you've got teams that play different fronts defensively. The classification of players as defensive ends, defensive linemen, defensive tackles, interior D linemen. I mean, it's just, there's a lot of information to kind of comb through. So here is just the overview here. We removed strictly pass rushers, or at least we tried to. We tried to remove players that are considered that edge group. And so hopefully when we do the edge show on Monday, we have a better reflection of that group, and hopefully this group reflects the non-edge players on the defensive line properly. Now, I will say, one of the things I'd like to say here at the beginning before we get started, before we get into this show and into these rankings, we as a football society need to come together and do a better job of classifying players along the defensive line and classifying edge players and D-line, D-tackle players and defensive ends. And we need to do a better job. And we need to come together and have one unified approach to this, because you go to different places and players are classified different things, and it just becomes a bit of a challenge. It becomes a bit of a mystery of how players are going to be classified. So that is my PSA from this list, is that we need to come together as a football community and do a better job of classifying the players on the defensive line with the edge and non-edge groups. We can do better here, and it would certainly help out this list for next season. Okay, without further ado, the pre-show chat was fired up. They were asking about teams. We didn't share any specifics, but there were people that were upset about where the Colts were going to be, people wanting to know where the Steelers were going to be. We were very, very in the weeds before the show even began. So without further ado, let's get this show on the road, and we will start with, and I'll do these in chunks. So we'll go the top 5 first, and then we can have any conversation. If there are any comments from the chat, I will read them, and then we can continue on from there. So for the top spot for me, I have the San Francisco 49ers. Armstead and Kinlaw, 2 great pieces, and they add Javon Hargrave in free agency. How is that not the top team when it comes to these defensive line, defensive tackle, non-edge rankings? So they're number 1 for me. This might be a bit of a surprise. I have the Atlanta Falcons. Number 2, Grady Jarrett, Calais Campbell, David Onyemata, anchoring that group there at number 2. I have the New York Giants at number 3. Williams and Lawrence kind of leading the way there, but they've got some decent depth with Nunez, Roaches, and Robinson. I've got the Washington Commanders 4. Allen and Payne leading the way there, but they've got Mathis, they've got Ridgeway, some other really good depth pieces there. They're at 4. And Miami in at number 5. Wilkins, Sealer, and Davis round out the top 5 for me. So just to recap for the YouTube chat, we've got San Francisco 1, Atlanta 2, Washington 3, and San Francisco 1, Atlanta 2, the Giants 3, the Commanders 4, and the Dolphins 5. Those are our teams that sit atop our defensive line, defensive tackle lists here for 2023. So that is 1 through 5. We will go through the next tier and round out the top 10. People were asking, people wanted to know where they were. The Pittsburgh Steelers here at number 6. Hayward and Ogunjobi leading the way there for them at number 6. Philadelphia at number 7. Cox, Carter, Davis. Davis, year 2 player. Carter, a rookie. They lose Hargrave. I think if they obviously had Hargrave, they'd be probably atop this list. So I kind of wanted to split the difference on where I put Philly on this list, because Davis was good when he was out on the field in 2023. Didn't want to penalize them too much for Carter as a rookie. So this felt like a nice little middle ground for them at number 7. I've got Cincinnati at 8. Hill and Reeder leading the charge for them as the top. To me, if you have, and you'll kind of start to see this, if you have 2 really good options, that's going to put you higher up on this list. Depth is kind of one of those teams where, there's one of these places where depth is nice, and if you have a nice, well-rounded group that's going to help you a little bit, but you really got to be able to pack a punch towards the top of your depth chart here at this list. We've got Buffalo at 9, Oliver, Jones, Ford, Settle, and Phillips. That's a group there that, again, kind of the depth at Oliver just got paid a ton of money in free agency. It's like $60+ million, $45 million of it guaranteed. And they've got a decent depth group. Heldy, you were asking where the Colts were. Here they are. They make the top 10. They are here at 10. Buckner, Stewart, and Bryan. Don't worry, Heldy. I know in the pre-show you were worried that they weren't going to be inside the top 16 or 14. We get them in there at number 10. They clock in there at number 10 for me. And then what you're going to start to see here as this list progresses is these next chunk of teams. I would say from Indy down, Indy through, I think, team 14, what you're going to see is a team that's got one really, really good defensive lineman. And that, having that player, I wanted to represent that team and that player accordingly because that player is so good at the position that they needed to be higher up on the list. Whereas if you just took the rest of the room and you weighted it almost the same as that player, these teams might be a little bit lower, and that doesn't feel in line with how good the room is because of how good that top line player is. And I think that starts with Indy. It certainly works with the Rams here at number 11 with Aaron Donald. The Jets are at number 12, Quinnen Williams. They've got some decent depth in Jefferson and Woods to kind of help with the run, but Quinnen Williams does a lot of the heavy lifting there. We've got the Tennessee Titans at 13 with Jeffrey Simmons, and then the Kansas City Chiefs at 14 with Jones. And Bailey kind of saw it in the chat that it was coming with the Chiefs and the Rams. So I think this tier, the Rams, the Jets, the Titans, and the Chiefs, you've got the top player doing a lot of the heavy lifting in Aaron Donald, in Quinnen Williams, in Jeffrey Simmons, and in Chris Jones, right? I think those are the players that, again, on their own, they're top 8 players at this position if we were just ranking defensive linemen. The rest of those rooms aren't great. They leave a lot to be desired. And so for me, putting those teams 11 through 14 felt very reasonable and felt like we split the difference well accordingly with how we want this list to ultimately look. But again, we will have the debate once the list is all done. A team that I'm super high on that I think could end up being higher on this list if we did this at the end of the season would be the Green Bay Packers. Clark and Wyatt leading the way for them there. I've got Carolina here at 16. Again, another team. I know Sportsnut was asking where Carolina was. I think another team, Derek Brown, kind of in that same mold that we're talking with the Jets, the Titans, the Chiefs. I'll put the Packers in front of the Panthers because I think I like the idea of Clark and Wyatt as a combo over Brown and what the rest of the Carolina team has. But they're close. They're 15 and 16 for me. Tampa Bay, a team that's got upside if you want to bet on Kalijah Kancey, but you guys know what we do here. We kind of try to take this at face value going in to 2023. We don't know a lot about Kalijah Kancey as an NFL player. We know nothing about Kalijah Kancey as an NFL player, but they do have Vita Vea, who's a very strong interior D-tackle presence. And if Kalijah Kancey is pretty good, they'll probably end up being higher on this list. So we have them split the difference here at 17. We got Denver at 18, Allen and Jones kind of leading the way there. I got the Patriots at 19, Christian Barrymore, a really good player. Lawrence Guy also in that room as well at 19. And rounding out the top 20 would be the Minnesota Vikings with Phillips, Lowry, and Bullard. So that's the top 20 so far. And then the bottom part of this list, I think is where I felt some things, things felt a little bit more comfortable in this part of the list for me, I will say. We've got Jacksonville at 21 with Robertson Harris, Foley Fatukasi, 2 really good players. Seattle with Jones and Reed, 2 very good players. Houston at 23, Collins, Rankins, and Ridgeway. Some nice veteran presence there. Detroit at 24, Aleem McNeil, Bugs, Kaminsky. I think that's just a solid group with some depth at 24. 25, the Cleveland Browns. I know they addressed it with Siaki Ika in the draft, but this is probably the weakness of this defense. Tomlinson, Elliott, Winfrey, and Hurst. They added Siaki Ika, but again, an unknown going into 2023. We've got the Baltimore Ravens, Pierce, Matabuke, Washington, and Jones making up that room. Dallas, a team that I feel like I want to be higher on, but that's because of how much I love Mozzie Smith. And I think we need to see more from Mozzie Smith. We need to see him play at the NFL level before we can move this team up a little bit more. If there was a weakness on this defense for the Los Angeles Chargers, it would be the interior. Sebastian Joseph Day, Johnson, and Fox make up this group. They're 28th. Bailey, here you are, the Chicago Bears at 29. Again, a group that's got some pieces that maybe long-term you like with Dexter and Pickens, but factoring into this year, you got to look at Jones, Billings, and Walker amongst that group, a group that doesn't really do a whole lot for me, so I have them 29. And then the bottom 3, the Raiders, Nichols, Tillery, and Young. You got a rookie in there as well. The New Orleans Saints, I know a lot of people love Brian Brzee, but they had a mass exodus in free agency. They had a lot of players leave, and so it's Saunders, Shepard, and Brzee that make up the interior of that defensive line. And then I think the worst defensive line in all of football, the Arizona Cardinals. Lecky Fotu, Rashard Lawrence, Jonathan Ledbetter make up that group, and I don't know what that group's going to be able to do for them this year. I think that's one of the weaknesses of a defense that does have a lot of weaknesses. Hopefully Jonathan Gannon can get a little bit more out of them, but that is the concern that I have. So, okay, we've now read through all 32 teams. Taylor B says Devon Hamilton has been doing very well for Jacksonville as well. Yeah, I mean, I have Hamilton listed as a player as a player of note for them in my rankings. And Taylor also asked, but honestly, interior D-line is the hardest for me to rank outside of the top guys. I would agree. This was probably the toughest list for me to rank. Do I feel super comfortable ranking defensive linemen and defensive tackles? No. I'll be the first person to put my hand up and say no. It's probably the group that I feel least comfortable with. Of the entire series that we're going to do, this is probably the group that I feel the least comfortable with. And again, outside of those top guys where it's pretty easy to kind of slot them in, I think after 14 or so, you kind of start to struggle where to put teams. Heldy says, if I say what I'm thinking, I may be attacked. No, Heldy, you are free to say whatever you want here on this show. You are free to criticize any part of this list. Bailey says, I have thoughts on the Falcons and the Bills first up, also the Cowboys. You want to put the Cowboys higher? You can. I like Atlanta's group. I think David Onyemata is a really good player. I think Campbell's a good player. Grady Jarrett. I think they're three deep along that line. And I think they're three really good players. The depth plays in. I like Grady Jarrett. I like Atlanta, and I know that's going to make me. I know that's going to make me unpopular. But I'm very, very content with where I have Atlanta on this list. And if I did move them down, it wouldn't be very far. I think it would be below maybe the Giants and the Commanders. And they would end up being 4. But that would be as low as I'm willing to go. Bailey wants to move the Cowboys up. I can move them in front of... Oh, Diggy Zoo is a good player. So I think we could put... And they got Gallimore as well. We can move them in front of Baltimore. I think that would be a team that we can immediately put them in front of. We could put them in front of Cleveland if that's the debate that we want to have. Maybe Detroit. They feel very similar to Detroit. I'm sorry. I like the Falcons. Now maybe we can move the Giants up to 2 and we can have Atlanta at 4, and that feels like I'm not slighting the Atlanta Falcons too much. I like that group. I really do. So we'll do this. We'll do this. We'll put the Falcons at 4, and top 4 feels good for me. And then we'll flip Washington and the Giants. Even though I do like Washington, but I think the depth of I do like New York, but I think the depth of Washington is pretty good. So we'll have San Francisco, Washington, the Giants, and the Falcons. And we're gonna lock that in. And you know what? We'll go to this screen here. We'll go to the screen for the podcast listening audience. We've gone to the full screen where all the teams are listed. Travis Jones for Baltimore over Mozzie Smith. Yeah, I mean that's kind of the other thing that led me to putting Baltimore in front is I like Travis Jones a lot. Mozzie Smith's a relative unknown. I don't know, guys. I don't know where we can really get Dallas. Maybe we can get Dallas in front of Baltimore and Cleveland, but that's really about it. I like Detroit's room a lot better in terms of depth. And again, Mozzie Smith is a player that we don't know a lot about right now, and so that because we're trying to be intellectually consistent here with what our principles are, we're weighting rookies as a net neutral. We're not saying that they're good or bad. We're just rating them as a net neutral for these rankings. And so for me, that puts Dallas lower on this list. Now, at the end of the season, could they be much higher? Yes, absolutely. But I just think for right now, this room going into 2023 is going to be towards the back. And it clearly was toward the back. They used a first-round pick on a player for the position. And so that's the other thing that I think is important to take away here. So is there anybody else here inside the top 10 that we want to discuss? Wait, is that Jonathan Bullard on Minnesota? Yes, it is. Down here at 20. You're missing Hankins on the Dallas list, was one of the better run stuffers last year in the league. The Bills. Bailey wants to go to the Bills. You want to move the Bills down? I think once you start to move the Bills down, and I'm willing to have the conversation, we start to move them behind all of those teams. It's time to respect DeForest Buckner and Grover Stewart. I have the Indianapolis Colts number 10 on the list, and you are now accusing me. For the folks that are listening to just the podcast feed, in the pre-show, Heldy made the case that he was going to be upset that if Indy wasn't in the top 16 and the top 14. And I said to him, Heldy, if I have them ranked higher, then you need to have my back, and you need to defend me. I have the Indianapolis Colts 10th on this list. I have them as a top 10 team, and Heldy is immediately going against me and fighting me on this list. Attaboy, we would consider a net neutral for this list. If I could write Adabore's name down if it would make you feel better, but he's a net neutral. For the sake of this list going into 2023, he's a net neutral for what we are trying to do here. And he was a 4th round pick, as Sam mentioned in the chat. I like Adebore. I don't want to discount Adebore. I don't want to talk bad about him. I like him as a player. But going into 2023, he's an unknown. He's a net neutral for me in ranking here. All right, here you go. Here you go, Heldy. I moved him up to 9. I moved Buffalo down. Does that make you feel better? There you go. They're now inside the top 10. I'm not putting them in front of Cincinnati and Philadelphia. I'm not doing it. I'm not. No. I'm. Give me the Bengals group. Now we moved the Bills down 1 spot, which started the discussion that we were originally having here, which was about the Bills. Now I will say, I think if we start to discuss a Bills fall, they're going to have to go behind 11 through 14, which is the Rams, the Jets, the Titans, and the Chiefs. Because again, I think if we're going to say that Ed Oliver is just average, and if it's just a bunch of guys, which, again, I think, I don't largely disagree, but I think the group is deep in terms of depth, and I think that should matter. And so I guess the question that I have is, they have a deep group of maybe at best average players. Shouldn't that be good enough to be a top half of the league defensive line? And so I would feel comfortable slotting them in. I think slotting them in behind, I had them where we had them. We had them 9th. We're going to drop them a little bit, which is okay. I think we slot them in here. We slot them in at 14. So we slot the Rams, the Jets, the Titans, and the Chiefs, who have that one big major impact player. We have them in front of them. And then we put the Bills at 14. I like their depth over Green Bay. I like Green Bay's top 2 guys, but I don't, their depth is, I think, better, and I think they're better than the teams behind them. So I think that's a more fair representation of what we're trying to do with this list. That's why we talk these things out, because what I was trying to do with Buffalo ultimately ended up needing to move a couple of spots. So I think we're ready to lock in I think we're ready to lock in all the way down to Buffalo at 14. Miami, Pittsburgh, Philly, the Bengals, the Colts, the Rams, the Jets, the Titans, the Chiefs, and the Bills. I'm ready to lock all the way down to 14, which is rare for us. I don't think we've locked this far down this quickly. But now we have the back half of the list. Now we'll do the thing, we'll flip to the end. Does anybody disagree with the bottom 3 teams? Does anybody disagree with the Raiders at 30, the Saints at 31, and the Cardinals at 32? Is there any other team outside of that group that you want to make a case to move into the list? Miami feels somewhat high, but that's my only real issue. I mean, I just like Christian Wilkins a lot. It's just a personal bias with Christian Wilkins. And Sealer's a good player. So the bottom 3 of the list. So Bailey says, I think the bottom 4 of those teams. So it's just an order thing. If it's just an order thing, and like we're moving teams at most 2 or 3 spots, I think at the bottom of the list it doesn't matter. So we're going to lock in those teams. We're going to lock in the Bears, the Raiders, the Saints, and the Cardinals. Yeah, the Bears are. I think what's going to help the Bears is just that they have a bunch of guys, right? But I've got 2 rookies in here, so I can't. I'm kind of. I don't want to say handcuffed, because I think this is a better. I think this is a better way to do this list, to view rookies as a net neutral and look at the rest of the rooms. So I think we're going to lock this in. Let me make all these bold up here so we can see what exactly we're working with here, what's still left. There's been a campaign to move the Ravens up. Oh, I don't know if I can put them higher than Detroit. Eugene, don't you worry. The Atlanta Falcons are all the way up here at 4. And they're not moving. They're staying at 4, because I already moved them from 2. I love this group. I am biased towards this Atlanta group. I think it's going to be very good this year. Pearson Jones are so powerful, and Matabuke can penetrate upfield. Okay, we can put him in front of Cleveland. I think the highest I could get them would be 23, because I don't think I could put them in front of Seattle, because I think Jones and Reed are too good. So let's think. We can move them in front of Cleveland, and I'd feel okay about it. Could we move them in front of Detroit? Could we move them in front of Detroit? Bailey, I see your comment about the Bucs. I want to finish this Ravens conversation first. It feels as if there's not a lot of concern, a lot of questions about this. So since that's a thing, we'll leave them here. So I think the highest we could get Baltimore, that I would feel comfortable with, that I think is in line with my thinking, would be 23. Right? Because I don't love the group. I don't think they're as good as Seattle. I think we could debate the order here of 23 through 27. And again, we're arguing on the margins. It's what we always do here. It's what I love about doing these rankings, because this is the place we spend the most time, is we just get in the weeds on these teams at the back of the list. And I love it. I appreciate every single one of you that this is where we go with these lists. I think Baltimore, to still be in line with what we are thinking, are the Vikings better than the Ravens? I think the Vikings are better than the Ravens. I think Bullard's a good player. I think Phillips is a good player. Seattle is better. I do think Seattle's better. Again, I think the ceiling is 23. And so I think we have to ask ourselves, can we make the case that Baltimore is better than Cleveland? I think we can make that case. I think we can. I like Perion Winfrey. I'm kind of biased in that regard. I think this Detroit group's solid because of the depth, but I think Baltimore has a similar case. All right, let's do that. Let's just see what it looks like. Let's put Baltimore at 23 and see how we feel about it. I think I'm gonna lock these two teams in at 26 and 27. And then we're gonna be debating 15 through 25. Collins, Rankins, and Ridgeway, or McNeil, Buggs, and Kaminsky. I kind of want to move Detroit up a spot. I am going to move Detroit up a spot. And then I think we can lock into this 23 through 25 being Baltimore, Detroit, and Houston. And now we're debating 15 through 22. Packers at 15, Panthers at 16, Bucks at 17, Broncos at 18, Patriots at 19, Vikings at 20, Jags 21, Seattle 22. The Bucks are probably better than the Packers. Man, I like Clark and Wyatt a lot. But I think Greg Gaines was good last year. Vita Vea is a monster, and Logan Hall and Kancey could move them higher if they hit. But Bailey, the comment there is tough, because Logan and Hall and Kancey could move them higher. They could. But we can't. Kancey's a net neutral. I think this is the perfect splitting of the difference of what Kancey could give them. But maybe Gaines is a good enough player to put them in front of the Panthers. If we move the Bucks, man, I like Wyatt a lot. I do. But maybe I'm liking the idea of Wyatt more so than the actual player that we've seen so far, and I think that's an important distinction to be made. Okay, all right, you've convinced me, chat. You've convinced me. We'll move the Bucks up to 15. We'll put them behind the Packers, but I'm not moving the Packers lower than 16. That's it. We're locking in 15 and 16. I think the only other, Tate, here, I'll put Keon White's name down here for New England, but he's going to be considered a net neutral for us because we don't know anything about him. And so going into the 2023 season, we don't know what we're going to have from him. So we have to basically view him as a neutral and then the rest of the group. I think if there were two candidates for teams to move down, I think we can move these two teams down, New England and Minnesota, and move Jacksonville and Seattle up. If we wanted to split hairs and do this, those would be the teams that I would consider. But Seattle has a lack of depth outside of Jones and Reed. I like Jacksonville's group. I feel comfortable locking in Carolina at 17. And then I think Denver, New England, I would move Jacksonville up a spot or two. It's kind of what I want to do. I kind of want to do this. I want to flip Jacksonville and Minnesota and have Jacksonville at 20. And I think I would take New England's group over Jacksonville's group. Yeah, all right. We're going to lock this in, and then we're going to read the list one more time, and that's it. We did honestly, this was the list that I thought was going to cause the most debate and consternation, and I feel some validation that I did pretty okay here. That we didn't move a ton. So here is the finalized 2023 defensive line, defensive tackle, non-edge defensive line players list. San Francisco 1, Washington 2, the Giants 3, the Falcons 4, the Dolphins 5, the Steelers 6, the Eagles 7, the Bengals 8, the Colts 9, the Rams 10, the Jets 11, the Titans 12, the Chiefs 13, Bills 14, Bucks 15, Packers 16, Panthers 17, Broncos 18, Patriots 19, Jags 20, Vikings 21, Seahawks 22, Ravens 23, Lions 24, Texans 25, Browns 26, Cowboys 27, the Chargers 28, the Bears 29, the Raiders 30, the Saints 31, and the Cardinals 32. And Sam Teat saying this was surprisingly smooth. Yes, it was absolutely surprisingly smooth. I was shocked that it was so smooth, but hey, means we're getting better at putting these lists together, which is very, very preferred. It makes our jobs a lot easier here when we do these lists. I appreciate everybody being a part of the conversation all week long. Appreciate everybody enjoying the show and being a part of the show and listening to the show all week long. We greatly appreciate it. Another fun week in the books here for the TDN Daily podcast. As I mentioned at the beginning of the show, we continue these lists next week. We move to the edge groups on Monday. That is when we will continue these positional ranking series. Next week, we will have edge players on Monday. We will have true linebackers on Wednesday, and then we'll get to corners on Friday. And then I think we've got safeties and coaches left to go for these positional rankings for 2023. So that is what we've got left here on the docket for these positional ranking series. It's been such a fun series to put together. These lists have been so much fun. And it was a blast. So please rate, review, subscribe to the podcast. Leave us a 5-star review. Greatly appreciate it. Helps us in the algorithm. Helps us continue to grow this show. And we are seeing the growth here over the last couple of weeks. And it is all thanks to each and every one of you who make this show a part of your day, whether you're doing so in the podcast feed or you're doing so on the YouTube side of things. Speaking of the YouTube side of things, Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time is when you can catch this show live on YouTube, the video version. You get to see the list. You get to see me. You get to see the chat. You get to be a part of the show. It is always a blast. It is a great time, and you can join us Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you want to catch the video version, you can't join us live. You can do so on the Draft Network YouTube channel underneath the live tab. All of the VODs from these streams are still there. And you also get to be a part of the pre-show if you join us live, which we are going to get into here in just a second. So I hope everybody has a great rest of their Friday. Hope everybody has a great weekend. Thanks for being a part of the show all week long, and we'll talk to you all on Monday. Heldy, excited to push the Grover Stewart agenda. I know you were excited, but I had them as a top 10 list. I had them as a top 10 team. They ended up being 9th by the time everything was all said and done. So we've got corners next week, which I'm very excited for. That should be a lot of fun. And edge players next week as well. Looking forward to both of those lists. I think those lists are going to be more in the comfort zone for the show. Tate asks, for years now, the pass rushing D tackle has been so highly valued and the run stoppers devalued. But with the heavy emphasis of cover 2 this year, do you think guys like Travis Jones and Pierce have more value? I think you're going to have to be able to stop the run, Tate. I think that's still a thing in today's game. I can just look at it from the perspective of, my team and the Jets. They put an emphasis on, getting, Jefferson and Woods who are big bodies to help them stop the run. And that was one of the big things that they prioritized in free agency this offseason. So, yeah, I think they'll have value. Bailey, Chris, who do you think is better between Buckner and Grady Jarrett? I think DeForest Buckner is better than Grady Jarrett right now. But they've got Calais Campbell and David Onyemata. I think the Falcons have such a deep group. I know Grady wasn't good last year, but I just think I like that group better. I just think Tate. I agree. I just think there's no love for David Onyemata that I think should exist. Is he though, Eugene? Is he? I think they're going to play him more inside. I'm just not sure. Let me look. I like the group. Look at the depth chart. Are the Cardinals going to trade Budda Baker? Janelle, Scientists don't even know. Yeah, that was a selling point of him coming to Atlanta. Okay. Bailey, Chris Sala doesn't want to be on Hard Knocks. How much control do teams get over this? Will the Jets just be forced to do it because Bears Twitter is going crazy like they would be next in line? The Jets can't refuse it. The Jets are one of, I think, 5 teams. I think it's 5. But the Jets are definitely one of the teams that cannot refuse Hard Knocks. So he can publicly posture however he wants and says that he doesn't want it. And maybe he's doing so to kind of make it seem like it would be bad content for Hard Knocks and for HBO if they came here because he's going to be, grumpy and doesn't want them around or whatever the case may be. Maybe that's what he's trying to do. I do think it is a distraction. Bailey, the Bears and Jets can't refuse, but would they really force a team to do it if they are so dead set against it? Yes, because it's the New York Jets, it's the New York market, and Aaron Rodgers is on the Jets. So HBO doesn't care about how the teams feel. HBO cares about how many people are going to tune into their product. And they just launched that new Max thing, didn't they? They got to sell subscriptions for. So they want all the Jets fans to subscribe to Max to be able to watch Hard Knocks and to watch the Jets. So yes, they would really force a team to do that if they are so dead set against it. I fully expect them to be the team on Hard Knocks. Fully expect it to be the case. Salah can say whatever he would like. I expect them to be the team on Hard Knocks. I won't watch. I've never watched a single episode of Hard Knocks. I don't plan on changing that this season, this summer, no matter who the team is. I'm not a Hard Knocks fan. I don't love the concept. Any good that comes out of it ends up being on social anyway, so I don't need to sit through all the episodes. So I don't. There's no need for me for Hard Knocks. I'm not a Hard Knocks fan. Oh, Heldy, Heldy, I was just gonna ask. I literally was just gonna ask because we were talking about stuff. Transformers was surprisingly pretty solid, by the way. Best movie of all time. I'm so happy for you. I'm so happy that Transformers was good and it wasn't a waste of your time, that you enjoyed yourself. Janelle says, I've never watched it. I agree. Don't love the concept. Yeah, I mean, it's just, again, for all the people who love it, I understand why you love it. And I don't harp on you. Like, I'm happy for you. It's just not for me. It's just not for me. And my team's been on it already. My team was on it with Rex, which you want to talk about peak entertainment. For a Transformers movie, it would be tolerable to an average viewer. Transformers was a 7.5 out of 10. Those are two very different rankings that we got there. We're going to be back in our element on Monday with edge players. But now we can't, now I will tell you, Eugene, we can't, we have to look at Atlanta without Calais Campbell because we put him in this list. Guardians of the Galaxy 3 was good. I have to see it, What is the Jets' media policy? Bailey, that is a very open-ended question. Could you be a little bit more specific, and I'll attempt to answer for you what the Jets' media policy is? You didn't really give me a lot to go off of there. I know they just finished up One Jets Drive. The group is, I think, still top half because of Grady. I mean, Grady and Anyemeta on their own, I think, put them in the mix for being with just Jarrett and Anyemeta, I think they're a top 10 group. Bailey, do you want to follow up on your question about the Jets media policy? Now I get to push a new agenda for the edge rankings. We're going to do I'm going to start the edge rankings. Am I going to start them later today? I might. We'll definitely, I mean, they'll definitely be done tomorrow. Just in terms of what can be shared, as I said, the only way we get Bear stuff from training camp is if they get Hard Knocks because the rules are so strict. Yeah, I mean, I don't know specifically what they. Eugene, where did I have I had the Falcons like. had them eighth. Eighth. Listen, folks, not everybody can have a top spot for these lists. You have a top 10, you have a top 10 group at a position. Be happy. Yeah, Bailey, I'm not familiar with the Jets media policy. I'm just not familiar with it. There was just a trade in the NBA between the Denver Nuggets and the Oklahoma City Thunder. The Denver Nuggets are making trades in the middle of the NBA Finals. Absurd. Eugene, I was pounding the table for Atlanta running backs, by the way. I think I actually got them moved up. I think we moved them up a little bit, yeah. Bailey, genuinely think my only hope for that with the Bears is linebackers. They should be top 10 for those comfortably. Hold on. We'll do a very quick look. Defense. Inside linebackers. Like, here's can I make a complaint here with the group? So I'm on our lads. Actually, I can show you. Stand by. We have the technology for this. Just need to get rid of one thing. You guys aren't going to be able to see this. Gotta zoom in here. Okay. All right, we're gonna go to the screen. This is my box is blocking it. I'll scroll down a little bit. This is the problem with trying to do these lists for these two position groups. I have it sorted by outside linebacker. Okay, to be able to look at linebacker. There's a very, very, very big difference between the roles that Quincy Williams and Jamien Sherwood play for the Jets at these two positions than the position that Matt Judon plays and for the Patriots, or Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips play for the Dolphins. We need to do better here in terms of classification. We just have to. Because if I'm looking up linebackers, Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb are different players and play a different position than Quincy Williams does, or Patrick Queen does, or Jermaine Pratt does. TJ Watt plays a different position, but they classify him as a outside linebacker. We need to do better as a society with this stuff. We have to. Like, we need to do better when it comes to these lists. Makes doing these lists, specifically these couple of lists, impossible. Makes them impossible. But that doesn't mean we're not going to do it. We're going to take on the challenge head on. We will take the challenge head on and we will get these lists done. But, man, this is going to be tough. All right, folks, that's it. We're going to close the week out here. Appreciate everybody being here. Appreciate everybody being a part of these shows throughout the week, debating these lists, being a part of the news shows as always. Greatly appreciated. Greatly appreciated. Hope everybody has a great weekend with whatever they're going to be doing. We're back on Monday with the Edge rankings. Promise they'll be done. We will be doing them, no problem. We'll do the work. As Chris avoids my question about the Falcons running back room. Coward? What do you mean? What do you mean coward? Should be top 4 or 5. All right, hold on. I'll pull the list back up. They're not better than Green Bay. They're not better than Indianapolis because they have Jonathan Taylor. They're not better than the room with the Saints with Kamara and Williams. They're not better than Nick Chubb. So they're top 4. So here's the thing. You will put the Bears Edge group top 20 if you aren't a coward. Why aren't they better than Green Bay or the Colts? Because Green Bay has 2 number 1 running backs and the Colts have Jonathan Taylor. Yes, we are talking about the room. So if we are talking about the room, then all I have is Tyler Algier, but Eugene. Bijan I have to view as a net neutral. because I don't know. And Tyler Algier, I think putting Atlanta 5 or Atlanta 8 with Bijan, Tyler Algier, and Cordarrelle Patterson is splitting the difference from where they would be if Bijan is the player that we think he's going to be, and where they wouldn't be if they didn't have, or where they would be if they didn't have Bijan. 8 is the perfect splitting of the difference between those two parameters. Because if Bijan's the player that we think he is, and they have Bijan, Tyler Algier, and Cordarrelle Patterson, then they're probably where the Saints are at 3. And if they didn't have Bijan, and it was just Tyler Algier and Cordarrelle Patterson, they're probably in the 13 to 15 tier, where we have the Chiefs, Washington, and the Raiders. 8 is like splitting the difference between those two spots. I feel incredibly comfortable where we have the Falcons. Incredibly comfortable. You're not going to convince me to move Atlanta. They're locked in. They're locked in where they're at. Okay, folks, we're out of here. We got the edge on Monday. Hope everybody has a great weekend. I appreciate all the debates. Appreciate the conversation. It's always a good time. But I hope everybody has a good weekend. Enjoy yourself. We're back on Monday. We've got more rankings to do, more news to break down. We'll be doing so on Monday. So we'll talk to everybody later.